Okay, so our topic this month is artistic purpose. We're looking at it from the perspective of, are you doing it for creativity or for monetary purpose? And we'll get more into that as we go along. So just wanted to say hello. Sorry we don't have a title up there, but wanted to share that with you. So, that was the greeting.
That's the greeting. Okay. All right. Well, again, Artist Unplugged Swag would share that, guys, with you. And it will be available soon on the website. And, you know, what have you been up to this week or this month? These past
A lot.
weeks? A lot?
Yeah. Last weekend was the Southern Fruit, which was the exhibition that Jeffrey Wilcox Paclapan curated, which was a great success.
Okay.
And from that, Paul and I collaborated on an installation called Tree of Life. And from that, someone reached out, and the Tree of Life will now be showing at Vino Noir on Sunday, which is it's a wine tasting, but with art as well. So that will be there with some of my work and some of his work as well. We can post the details on that in our story later in case anyone is interested in attending. I'll be there. It's from 3 to 7 on Sunday in Atlantic Station. So that is going on. My studio is, I'm no longer sharing it, so I'm getting it all set up again. And I just started building a new workbench and putting them on wheels. So I was taking care of that yesterday, creating new paperworks as well. So doing a lot of things, as well as some submissions, of course. So a lot going on. How about you?
Still recovering from Atlanta Art Week.
Yeah.
Still, that was exciting. It was great. It was our first art week here in Atlanta, but still recovering from that. And have been in the studio prepping for submissions. You know, that's the thing about starting a whole new body of work.
Yes.
Is all of a sudden all these submissions pop up that you want to be a part of, and then you want to show the new work, and it's not ready yet. Right. So I don't really go into the studios on Saturday unless I'm on a show, because I'm not going during the week. But I will be going to the studio after the show to paint 3 pieces for one of the shows that we got accepted into.
Okay.
And then next week I'll start prepping pieces for another submission, Art Fields. Right. Sponsor us. For Art Fields. Next week I'll be working on that next week. And then really that's it. I'm not even going to say getting some rest because that hasn't happened yet. So.
Yeah, it's been a busy art season.
It has been.
As well as everything else that, you know.
Yeah.
Then there's just life.
Then just life. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So back to the topic of artistic purpose. So, you know, like we said, looking at it from 2 perspectives. Is it strictly for creativity, or is there some monetary aspect in there, or strictly monetary, or somewhere in between? And so what does it mean to feed your creativity? And I'll speak from my point of view. When I started, I was trying to make money from my art. And it's a difficult thing, particularly when starting out, to do both. And for me, there's something I want to say with my art. And in trying to say it, and then looking at, is this sellable? Does someone want to buy it? That's a lot of pressure I found to put on art. And so I let go the monetary side of things, and then looked at feeding my creativity, which is, why am I doing this? What am I trying to say with my work, and how can I say it better? Is it also improve on my work? And how can I say this in another way, or in, you know, whatever is sort of channeling through me in a creative way, how can I do that? And I found when I was looking at trying to make money from it, it caused a lot of conflict within me. Excuse me if I hit my microphone. And so I wanted to stop that. So it was an ongoing process to let the money side go, because I still have to figure out, you know, how am I going to support myself? And I got to the point where I decided you don't have to make money. I don't have to make money from my art. I can get income from somewhere else, and then, you know, strictly allow the art to be creative and what I want to say.
So how long have you been painting, and when did you start doing this full time? And I will say this, I say full time in the sense of, if you're doing art as a main part of your life, a lot of people think full time means that's the only thing that you do and you don't do anything else as far as work.
Right.
So, you know, as far as full time, when did that happen, and what made you decide, okay, I want to do this full time?
Yeah, it's probably about 6 years ago, right before I moved to Atlanta. I decided, okay, I'm gonna do this, and just started painting. And it was a process from, okay, I'm going to paint, to what am I going to paint? What am I trying to say with this? And, you know, the process goes on. And it's an evolutionary process. That's what I found. So I would say about 6 years when I decided I'm going to paint. And then it took another 2 years before I could actually say, oh, I'm an artist. I'm really an artist. And that shift took painting over a period of time, in order, and in a place where sometimes people would see my work. And because I got a studio outside of home, so I started painting at home, then got a studio outside of home. And it was in that process of painting and discovering what I liked, what I didn't like. And because you get there, you know, of I really like using these materials over these materials, until it's progressed to now for me, how can the things that really matter to me also come into my art, which is recycling materials, and how can I speak to less waste in our society, and how can I bring that into my work? So it, you know, it was sort of this evolutionary process, and in that process, if I allowed money to come in, the evolutionary process of me as an artist wouldn't happen in the same way. Because if I'm concerned about, is someone gonna buy this, I may not do something creatively in the studio that I otherwise would do, because I'm letting my creativity just flow, versus if I'm making something that I want to be sellable. Or the other thing that can happen is you can get pigeonholed in something. If you're an artist and you become known for doing this, you can become pigeonholed in that, doing it for this, and the creativity not being able to flow in the same way. Yeah. So, you know, we were talking when we were thinking about this topic, is, you know, there's a whole notion of your work being your gift to the world. And I see my work that way. Not in a sort of egoic sense of the word, but in a previous live we spoke about, if something is being channeled through you, and I'm a believer that we're connected, all connected here in this universe, And if we are all connected and something is channeling through me, whatever, name you want to give it, who am I not to allow that to be expressed out in the world? And so that it's looking at the gift being that gift, beyond a sort of an egoic sense of being here. So, sharing your gift. So that's part of feeding your creativity. So it's a symbiotic relationship in a way between me, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, and this creation of artwork. And that's where I see feeding my creativity, that's where it's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What about you? How do you see your creativity? Because you've started this new body of work.
Yes.
Right, which is crocheting. It's knitting.
Well, fiber arts.
Fiber arts.
Yeah, fiber arts in general.
Right.
Yeah.
So fiber arts, which it's something that harkens back to many years ago that you're now bringing back in.
Mm-hmm.
So in your process of creativity, what is guiding you in that process?
Well, I've been painting I've always been in arts and crafts. My mom always had me in arts and crafts class. So my artistic journey has been ongoing all my life. And then as my career, I am a makeup artist for film and television, which is always interesting because then people are like, oh, so you're like an artist. I'm like, well, no, I am an artist. Just in this moment in time, your face is my canvas. Now, not all makeup artists are fine artists. Many fine artists are makeup artists. And so probably in 2013, 14, I will say this. I usually used to get seasonal depression. So I found myself every holiday going to buy art supplies. And then I would paint on and off January, February, and then I wouldn't touch them again until, whenever. And at some point I was like, no, you enjoy doing art, so just do art to do art. You know what I mean? There was no other thing, other than something other than doing faces, scrapbook, just try different things. So I just used to do art just to do art. And it'd be an on and off. I'd be into it and then take a break for months and so on and so forth. So at some point it's dropped in my spirit, okay, what are we doing with this? Because I've given you this talent. So what are you doing with it outside of makeup? And I made the decision, and by that time I had moved in my current home where I am now, and decided that, okay, for me, I think I need to get out of the house because I bought the house with an extra bedroom to make it a studio and found that didn't work. So I'm like, if I'm gonna do this consistently, I have to leave my house. And then that's when I got my art studio. And I think that's when it was like, wait, okay, so am I officially a full-time artist? And I used to stutter because in my brain, I think the connotation is full-time means you don't do any other job. Mm-hmm. You do art, you sell your art, that's how you make your money. And I'm like, well, technically I am a full-time artist because, again, I'm a makeup artist. So, right. So with that, that's what led me into, I've always enjoyed acrylics. I've always been drawn to acrylics, and I started out with that. And then just looking for different ways to, I guess,
it's ended.
Oh, okay. Not the camera. A different way to not, sometimes we're scared to, like you said, we don't want to get pigeonholed into a signature, but we want to have a signature, but not to the point where we're scared to try something else. And so just trying to think of other ways to, which will lead into what I'm going to talk to, of not being part of a trend. What outside of acrylic can I do that I enjoy, that feeds my creativity, that's not the norm? However, it's still my signature. And so through a conversation, which I've mentioned in another show through one of our artist friends, I just casually mentioned that I knit and crochet, and then that began the journey of, why are you not doing that as part of your art practice? And I'm like, honestly, I never thought of it. And then I started looking up fiber arts. I was like, well, is there such a thing. And then come to discover there's a whole magazine dedicated that's been around for thousands of years. Like there's a whole nother world of fiber arts that I was not aware of. And so just learning more about that and learning that any type of textile work falls into this genre. And so why not take my knitting and crocheting and see what I can do with it. And the first struggle was I like to paint very ethereal, so how do I take that painting style and incorporate it with my knitting, because I didn't want to use pre-dyed knit, because when you do if you do an ombre or a yarn that has multiple colors in it, you have no control where the color lands. And so how can I take the way I like to paint my color combinations that speak to me, and how do I incorporate this into this new body of work without having to do dyed yarn by somebody else? So that was part of the creative process of how do I make that happen?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So your creative path then to being an artist was more through as a hobbyist first.
Yeah.
And stress relief.
And stress relief.
Right.
Yeah.
And then saying, and then saying I want to take this further. And of course there's nothing wrong with not taking it further, right? Because not everyone wants to be an artist or finds joy in that process. So as a hobbyist is fine. For stress relief it's fine. For therapy it's fine. I think it's just important to know yourself and know your purpose and what you're doing.
Your intention.
And your intention.
Yeah. And knowing that it's okay. Whichever way you choose, it's fine.
Right.
If you decide to paint a painting and then put it in the garbage, that's fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As long as you got out of it what you want, whatever that process did for you, as long as you got that, then what you do with the end result is neither here nor there.
Yes.
You know.
And I've seen many times where artists have painted for years and years and years and years and had another profession, whether it was teaching art or whatever it was, and then after 25, 30 years they have this collection of work and then they do an exhibition. So there's that as well. I think the practice of creating art helps you to find your voice, and Paul shared with us it takes time to find your voice, and it's okay to take that time to find your voice. I think my process was finding my voice as I was creating and selling as well. So if you look at my work, it quickly progresses from one. You still see the sort of signature of what I do, because I've used paper and oils, and so that is consistent. But how it's shifted, has to me, other people may say not, but to me it feels like it can be rapid would be the word I would use. So, that's that on creativity. I don't know that there's much else that I would share around this topic on creativity, but as we were discussing, as we were talking about this topic, it's then those that have only the intent to sell, and so create, quickly and hang it out and to sell. And is there something wrong with that? No, I don't think so. It's not my path, but there can be a judgment of if it's art just to sell, is it art, right? And so there's that side of it. As I said, for me, I can't judge because if there's someone who likes it and considers it art and wants to buy it, then it's working for that artist. I've heard the comment of, you know, people who buy art to match their couch versus buy art because they love this piece and it's speaking to them. And I'm not a person who buys art to match my couch, but I don't judge someone if that's what you're doing. You're curating your house.
I also think it's I'm gonna say educational. I think it's also an educational thing. There's been this explosion of collecting art, and I feel like it's, you know, Jay-Z, one of his songs, and all of a sudden everybody's buying art, and you would see it literally in media and articles, and now all of a sudden the I'm gonna say elitist, but it seemed like art collecting was this elitist thing when in essence all of us can collect art, you know what I mean? And so there became this period around the pandemic where all of a sudden it's like, oh, anybody can collect art? And I'm like, well, yeah, anybody can collect art. And so that's where, you know, there's always been this, which is my soapbox of don't buy art that matches your couch, because I think it's a mindset that I love this piece of art but it doesn't match my couch, so I'm not gonna buy it. And I think it's just breaking that mindset, like, no, you can buy the art. Buy the art because you love it. If you love the piece, don't worry. You're probably going to change the couch at some point. Yes. So buy the piece of art, you know. And I always tell people that when you look at somebody's art collection, pay attention. Like, I love $1 Million Listing. That's one of my favorite shows. And so these people have these wonderful art collections. And, you know, because it's in my mind's eye, because I'm an artist, I'm looking at the art collection, even though they have half of it blurred out for permission purposes. But I can tell it's like, okay, this is a true art collector because it's not matching the furniture. You know what I mean? You see a little bit of everything, different styles, you know, and so truly you can see that person bought those pieces because they love those pieces, you know.
Yes. And so there's also another distinction in collecting art. And when I was at Atlanta Art Fair with Paul, actually, he was discussing this very topic with someone who collects art. But they collect art with the intention of it appreciating in value. And so if they need to, I think the person said, and I'm not exactly sure, but they sold 2 pieces of art and went and, you know, bought a car or something like that. So there's back to the money and the, you know, love side of it. Are you buying it because this is from an artist that you're hoping the artist's work will appreciate and value? Or are you buying this because you really love this piece and it speaks to you and it brings a certain energy into your space? Or is it both? You know, so that's part of it too, of there's all these nuances that happen with collecting, with creating, with buying and selling. It's what is the intention, and not just the intention, but the intention specific to the person. So the person always needs to be asking, what is my intention here?
Right.
You know?
Right.
So you now were looking at the aspect of like authenticity as an artist.
Right.
So you want to tell us a little bit about that?
So for me, from my standpoint of authenticity as an artist, and what kind of brought this whole conversation about is we were having the conversation about. Can you start the camera again? And hit the light on the back. There's a button on the back. We try to get footage from all angles. So see the round button at the. You just push it. No, at the bottom. Bottom
yeah.
right. Bottom right.
Bottom right.
On the. I'm sorry, left. Bottom left.
Here.
Yeah, just hit it. There we go.
Okay.
And then turn the camera. There, perfect. All right. Sorry about that. So this conversation came about because we were just talking about, you know, doing art for the love of creativity, or doing it to create, or doing it to sell. And one of the points that I brought up to Sharon was that there is you see these courses that say create art, whatever. What is creating the art you want and cultivating your style to sell. And then what is sellable art? What does that mean? Because, you know, you can go to an art show, you can go to an art fair, an art museum, you can see red dots on some things, and you're like, huh, okay, somebody liked that because they paid $5,000 for it. So what exactly is sellable art? Because you have these courses that pop up that say, you know, learn how to create sellable art. And I took a course. I thought it was going to be more of a technique course, you know, teaching how to fine tune whatever your style is, how to fine tune it to get it, you know, sellable and or you know, or get it ready to sell. And it was about following the trends. The course at the end of the day was about following the trends. So, you know, basically, if alcohol ink is the trend, this is how you create alcohol ink art. If painting trees is the trend, this is what you do. And basically, they're trying to teach you how to. No, you still keep your style, but make sure you're painting subjects that are selling right now. And it's like, what does that do for your creative soul? Because if I don't want to paint trees, I don't want to paint, I love dogs, I don't want to paint dogs, you know what I mean? It's fine. I don't want to paint dogs. That's not my style. I'm non-representational abstract. That is what I do. When I do something representational, it is collage. And so that led me to think that, is there a right or a wrong way? You know what I mean? Is it wrong to follow the trend and create what you want to create? Or is it better just to stick to your signature, you know, and then what happens, you know? I personally feel like if you stay true to yourself, everything else will come. You know, it's very much that I don't chase, I attract. And I do feel like that when you chase things, they run from you. Because your intention is not just. The intention is, I'm going to paint this tree because I want to sell this tree so I can make some money to go buy a car. You know what I mean? And as opposed to staying true to your style, really cultivating your style, and then your collectors will, if they build it, they will come. Your collectors will love your style, and then you will start selling art. And it may be a slower burn, you know what I mean? However, at the end of the day, you could follow the trends and paint all the things and make quick sales, but do those collectors come back to you when you stop painting whatever the trend was 2 years ago when they painted the alcohol ink, when they bought the alcohol ink from you?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if they love alcohol ink art and you're no longer doing it because you did it for the trend, they've now found another artist that does alcohol ink art.
Yes.
Or whatever that particular art is. So it's you know, it is that fine line of staying true to yourself and you know, wanting to make money, which there's nothing wrong with wanting to make money from your art if that is your intent, if you're not a hobbyist. And then knowing that, you know, with everything there's, you know, ebbs and flows, you know. And I attribute it to, you know, the example that I gave you is, you know, I'm a makeup artist again for film and television, and we have a lot of new people in the industry that get in because they hear we make great money and they want to work with celebrities. Oh my, that's the first question I get. Who have you worked on that's famous? You know what I mean? And it's like, I have to stop and think because everybody's just people to me. I don't get caught up in that. You know, I've been very fortunate to work on, you know, great projects, but I don't get caught up in that. And so with this new generation of makeup artists, it's about working with celebrities. They themselves want to be a celebrity, or they hear that, you know, they hear about our income. They're not in it for the cinematic process. They are not interested in telling the story. They have no interest in being a part of creating the character. Even to the point now where when I talk to new or younger makeup artists, especially in the industry, I no longer say I do makeup. I say I create characters, because that's what we do. We go in, we read the script, and we tailor the makeup for that character. It's about being a part of the storytelling process. To, you know, whoever's vision it is, my part is to create those characters with makeup to tell their story, okay? And so that's what I feel like when it comes to, like, I'm just making this whatever to sell art. It's like you have no interest in being part of the artistic overall story that art tells throughout history. You know, we have a history of stories that are told and that we are a part of telling, you know.
Yeah.
Our art is a part of that storytelling for generations to come.
Yes.
And so you have no interest in being part of the story. You just want to sell a piece of the pie.
Yes, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Paul shared, when you find your voice and you find your style, you want to get to a point where you can do anything without even thinking about it. And that's when the artist can start doing commissions. And he continues, it's about mastering your craft.
It's about mastering your craft.
Right, which is what you were talking about.
Yes.
With your storytelling. And it's true. And it's if you, and as I read this, what Paul said and what you were saying, particularly commissions, when I do a commission, I realize my process is exactly the same. So I don't, someone can't, for me personally, someone can't come to me and say, I want you to paint this. I don't do that.
Right.
What I do is they want a feel or they want something more abstract around it. Or, you know, you can give me a song, a prayer, a poem, and then I work with the feeling that that evokes. And then I go to abstraction and I abstract something from that in that whole process. And so that is true. Have you gotten to the point where your process is the same? So what the painting will look like can vary, but the process is the same. So when you look at the work, you see the thread of what this artist does in the work. And so at some point, the art and the money merge, like what you said.
Right.
So here's a question, because I heard this quote and flipping by Instagram, and the person said, if someone creates art and it's never seen, is it still art?
I think so.
Absolutely.
Like
I
if
agree.
you cook a pie and nobody eats the pie, it's still a pie.
Yeah.
So I definitely think so.
Yeah.
Because again, what the person who created the piece of art, did they get out of it that they needed to get out of it while they were creating the piece of art?
Right. Right.
You know?
Yes. Yeah.
You know, and I do feel like a lot of artists don't show their art unless they're, if they are straight on, no, I create my art for fun, or I create my art to give to people. But other artists, I feel like it is that imposter syndrome. They don't think it's good enough, especially if they go to art shows or they go to galleries. They're like, I can't see my art on this wall. I don't feel like any, but I think it's good until I see other people's art, and then I don't think it's good.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It's very much that too.
Yeah, and it's also how does what you're saying really, how the artist feels about the art, because I'll get to a point, I paint and paint and paint and paint on the same canvas, and people have said, you have like 4 paintings on this one painting. But that is my process, and I paint until it feels true to me, and then I know I'm done. And it may be true in this moment, and 2 years down the line I'll see it and it's not true anymore because I'm a different person. But that's okay, you know, that something stands in a moment and then, you know, goes, because you have artworks that can live for a moment and then disappear. If it's sand art, for example, or a dance. A dance is created here in front of you and then it's done. You don't see that again. Yes, you have a recording, but the live performance of art is, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, or whatever. So,
Isn't there an artist, I feel like we were together, isn't there an artist here in Atlanta, she does pieces and they're photography pieces, and she does other pieces, and then like after the show, part of the art is she burns it. It's something like that.
I've never heard of her.
I feel like we were at Spalding or something. And
Okay.
but it was like one of those, or we were, or maybe I was with Paul. I might have been with Paul, and we were at the other studio at Open Studios last year. It was something like that. But it's definitely I think when it comes to selling art as well, for me, this is the way I look at it. You're paying for an outside studio space, so I'm not doing this for fun. In that sense, if I wanted to paint for fun, I'd just go ahead and do it here at the house. You know what I mean? So I do think that that is the underlying intent of when you do get a studio space. It is to create, but again, you're not chasing the money. You're just giving yourself the space, literally the space, and you're giving yourself the room to create and let that that story within you come out.
Yes.
And again, what's Paul is saying about mastering your craft, so then you can do anything.
Yes.
Because there is this moment of, I even put down, scared not to try anything new or not to switch to anything new because you're afraid it won't sell.
Yes.
So again, you're not telling your story. It's like, well, I do want to try that, but I don't know if it's going to sell, when that might be your biggest story of all. If you tried that particular technique or method or size or whatever, whatever it is.
Yeah, because you're looking at what are you allowing to dictate to your creativity. Is it something outside of you, or is it something within you? And the within part is the part that no one else can see until you've created it. And if you allow something to suppress that, again, you're not giving birth to an artistic, whatever you want to call it. You're not giving birth to that creation, because it's like you're allowing almost like a wet towel to suppress your fire,
right?
For example. Yeah.
And do you feel like, not necessarily personally, but do you feel that if you do art and your intention is this is your income, your intention is to sell your art, do you feel that if you don't sell anything, then you are now a failure? Do you?
No, I don't personally, because maybe the person who's going to buy it just hasn't seen it yet. When I started doing festivals, that was the biggest aha for me, because the very first festival I did was the Inman Park Festival, not too far from here. I did that maybe about 3 years ago, and there were thousands. It was the first festival after COVID.
Gotcha.
And there were thousands of people there. When you look down the street, you just saw a sea of people, and thousands of people were there. And there were people who walked by my booth as if I didn't exist. And then there were those who were across the street, down the road, and saw something in my booth and made a beeline and came in. Oh, I love this. And what I found was that there are people that resonate with what I do, and then there are people that there's nothing there.
They're just out for the day.
That, not that things don't resonate for them, it just wasn't my work.
Right.
And that was fine. But it was so wonderful to experience the people who did resonate with my work. And that's what I love about festivals, is you meet a lot of people that you wouldn't otherwise meet, who gets to see your work.
Right.
That doesn't happen regularly. If you're in your studio and you have an open studio, and what if you get 20 people that come by, maybe that, and those are usually already 20 people who know you and like you.
Right.
So to get strangers
to come in,
who come in, and then I've had discussions as well that setting up a booth at a festival isn't about selling art.
It's about connections.
It's about connections and putting yourself in front of people that you wouldn't have otherwise seen. I've gotten commissions from festivals. I've seen people from other festivals show up at future festivals, and they didn't buy anything 3 times in a row, and then this 4th time they buy something.
Or they call back and ask for.
Or they call back and ask for it, or they'll just come through again and say, I just love your work, and spend a little time and keep going. I live for that, actually. And so I allow myself to make money elsewhere, and just enjoy being an artist and having people enjoy my work. Is it nice if they buy it? It really is. It really is nice. But it's not, for me, it's no longer a necessity.
Right.
It's no longer a
And
necessity.
I feel like I mentioned this maybe during our first show, or maybe it was just a conversation we had. I was listening to a podcast, and it's an artist in England, and he did a festival. Same feeling, some people it wasn't their jive, other people I love it. I can't remember if he said he made any particular sales that particular show, but he said 7 years later, and of course he didn't realize it was 7 years later until the conversation. But he got a call from a guy who wanted a portrait. And he said, they went through all the details. And he's like, if you don't mind if I ask, how did you find out about me? He goes, oh, I have your card from a festival 7 years ago.
Yes.
It's been on my refrigerator.
Yes.
So the guy didn't talk to him at the festival. The guy got a card from him, and they may have had a brief conversation, but it was so brief that to the artist, like, okay, somebody took my card. But this guy went home and put this card on his refrigerator, and 7 years later called this man for a portrait.
Yes. No.
So you just never know when. You're always making connections when you're talking to people.
Yes.
And you just never know when that connection is going to turn into something. And it may not even be the person you talk to. They may pass your information along.
Yes.
They may work for the Hilton Hotel, and now all of a sudden they have a budget for art, and they're like, I met this artist at this art festival 2 years ago.
Yes.
And I really liked her stuff, and I think it would fit in our lobby.
Yes. And if it's 7 years, when art can be expensive depending on what size it is, a person may not have the financial ability when they first meet you to purchase your art. But 7 years down the road, they've been wanting one of your pieces that now 7 years down the road, 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, they have the ability to spend the money.
And that brings up a good point in the sense of I listen to a lot of podcasts and audiobooks, and there's one person I listen to who does not like the idea of selling multiple sizes. Not that you have to stick to one size, but she's very much the why sell 500 stickers where you can sell one piece. And then there's somebody else that I listen to, and he's all for having multiple sizes for multiple price points. And that same podcast, they were talking about, I think the other host was like, yeah, I have smaller works, and I've had people buy a $20 print, and then years later come back and buy the $2,000 piece.
Yes.
And so what is your gateway, about, do you just, you can definitely just continue to do festivals and shows and pass out cards and have conversations and just stick to your $1,000 and up prices, or you can be one that has some prints and has some note cards and has a little bit of this, a little bit of this and a little bit, different price points. And that person that buys that $25 print and puts it proudly in their dollar store frame because that's their budget, every time they walk by that piece, it just may light the fire in them to say, one day I'm going to own one of their pieces. One day I'm going to have a commission from them. And that's internally their goal. And you never know, again, 2, 3, 5, 10 years later, you've got this person. It's like, I bought a print from you from Inman Park for $25 5 years ago.
Yes.
And now, as my treat for getting this promotion, I want to commission you to do a piece for me because I just absolutely love your art.
Yeah. I agree with that. And for example, I'm not a person who does prints for a different reason. My work is so textured, and I don't believe that the essence of the work doesn't come across in the print, in the same way. So I don't do prints. I have done note cards. I had a conversation with someone who visited my studio this past week, I think, and he was like, do stickers, do this, you know, just anything to share with someone. You know, if you do a sticker and you share it with someone, it's a reminder of you. And I said, I thought about it, and I thought I would do heart stickers. I paint a lot of hearts. And that's not just as a reminder of me as the artist and the work, but also spreading the message that is within my work. So that I would do, you know. But it comes back to what is your intention, and how do you speak to the intention, and what helps you get you there. Yeah. So
and I do think it's like you said, if you did heart stickers, that's just a reminder. Even doing smaller pieces, I do prints, I do note cards, and I do feel like I would want you, if all you can right now get is a $20 print, and that makes you smile every day, I'm good with that.
yeah.
I'm good with that. You know what I mean? I'd rather that than you. Wow, I really wish I could want a piece of her art. And then sometimes that internally can make that person feel bad about themselves. You know, then that's a spiral into what's going on in their life.
Yeah.
And I'd rather be able to have things that you can walk away with, and still be a part of the artistic story.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
I'd rather that.
Yeah. So, let's see. I think we've covered everything pretty much that we wanted to say.
I did want to ask you, because you brought up commissions, I did want to ask you this. Do you find it harder to do commissions? Or because some artists feel like they feel restricted, you know what I mean? And it's like, do you feel...
I never feel restricted. That's
Okay.
not my issue with commissions, because the way I set it up, I can't be restricted, because I say from the beginning, you know, I don't know what this is gonna do. It's in my contract. There's no set outline of what this is going to look like, because I work abstractly as well.
Right.
So you can tell me colors, right? That doesn't mean I won't put other colors in there, because again, in my contract, I'm allowing something to flow through me, and that's what you're hiring me to do. And so I don't feel constricted. What I find is I have this, are they gonna like this? Is this going to speak to what it is that they wanted? And that can make the process so much longer for me. And every single time I've had that, when they get the artist, oh my God, I love this, but I want to please. That's what it is.
Right.
That's what it is.
Right, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So, but no, I don't. I'm so aware of myself and not wanting to be pinned into anything in particular that I really avoid that side of it. Yeah, so it's more a personal internal struggle that goes on for me.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Yeah, I don't feel restricted. I just, same thing. It's like, I hope they like this.
yes.
But then I have to remind myself, it's like, okay, they said, I saw XYZ piece, I really love this, you know,
Yes.
and, you know, if, you know, just tell me what colors you want and what colors you hate, and then it is what it is at that point.
Yeah. See, I wouldn't even say what colors do you hate, because if you tell me you hate a color, it may very well wind up in the piece, because art for me is to move you. And again, I wouldn't consciously do it.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm working on a piece and I feel this color is going to speak to this, then I may struggle and go through, this color needs to be there, but they said they don't like this color. That conversation may happen.
Okay.
That conversation may happen. But then coming back to being authentic to my creativity, my artistry, my process as an artist, I will always strive to lean into my authenticity.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, just as a closing, it always seems, I always look down and it's about 11:15, and then I look again and it's like 11:55, and I'm like, really? And I have to say, at the beginning, I always feel like, what are we going to talk about for an hour? And I know, but I see this as, if I just read this in 15 minutes, it's over. Yeah. So my quote, I was to have a quote, but again, I come back to really tuning into who you are, what you wish to achieve, and leaning into that. Leaning into the authenticity. And there isn't a wrong way to go about it unless you are not being authentic to yourself. That's the only wrong way.
Right.
That's all I have to say. The wrong way is not to be authentic to yourself. And I will go as far to say this. I think if money is your only goal, for anything in life, not just in art, if money is the only goal, that's not a good thing. I will say that.
Yeah.
And I can explain that in another, but that would go beyond the scope of artistry specifically. But that would really get into
we can make that a topic for next year.
Yeah, my very personal points of view
can
on the world.
Yeah. And it's
So-
and I just to end that, to piggyback on that and end it real quick. That's something that I've noticed in my career. When I am, at the end of a show, people are like, "Well, what are you going to next? Or what show? Do you have a job? Do you have a job?" And I learned early in my career that I stopped doing that. I never really did it, but then I found that I was like, that energy would be like, and I kind of like, I'm going to be where God has me.
Yeah.
And I find when I don't stress out about my next show, I get a text or a call for a show when I'm not thinking about it.
Yes, absolutely.
When I'm not thinking about it. And I just take it as, when I'm not getting called, that means I need to be focusing on my art and other things in my life.
Yes.
And I'm supposed to be resting. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
exactly.
I'm supposed to be resting.
Exactly.
Because I will go from show to show to show to show to show.
Yeah.
And I've learned
Because
that.
it's possible to do that.
Yeah, because it's possible
But
to do that.
is it necessarily the right thing for you to do that?
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
So yeah.
So thank you for joining us. It's good to have you again. Our next show is November 16th at 11 a.m. And our topic will come out. We're looking at the business side of being an artist. So I think that is going to be an interesting topic because, I've spent years working on that side. So I would love to share, we would love to share that.
And then don't forget, real quick, because I'm looking at the time, don't forget to join the community. Sign up for the newsletter. The link is in the bio, and the subscription to the newsletter is right there in the bio. You don't have to leave Instagram. You can fill it out right then and there. Make sure you're following us here on Instagram and YouTube. The replay of this will be up on YouTube. And I think that's it.
That's it.
All right.
Thanks again.
Thanks, guys.
See you next time.
See you next time. Have a great rest of your weekend.
You too. You too.
You too.